All right. Everybody still hear me? Okay. Okay. So this talk today is called Practicing Peace Like a Warrior. About 3 years ago, I created this as a workshop because I realized it takes commitment to live with a peaceful heart. So I created this an hour workshop and I called it the practice of peace. And I had not one person sign up for it. Zero. This is how many people were interested in practicing peace. And I kind of, when I asked around, what I heard was, because this is back in 2017, okay, what I heard was, well, now is not the time for peace. Now is the time for action. Or I liked this one a lot. I'm not just going to sit around and do nothing. Or this one. I want people to know they are wrong so they will change. Okay, so what this kind of turned into with the people I knew was that they wanted to be taking action, but because it wasn't happening with a peaceful heart, what it was really turning into was a blaming and complaining game. And I could recognize this because that's where I used to live myself. When I would see things that I judged as wrong in the world, I'd become like a complainer and a blamer and sit on my butt and do nothing about it. Now, even in spiritual circles, there are a couple of misconceptions about what it means to practice peace. That I used to think that it meant being passive to avoid confrontation. It's like, just be a peacekeeper above all else. Don't get anybody mad at you, right? Just make peace with everybody. I know some people think that practicing peace is an invitation to do nothing, to just sit around and hope for the best. Some people, and myself included, I used to think that the practice of peace meant suppressing my anger and just pretending like everything was okay. But actually, this might sound funny to some of you. Most of you all probably already know this because you guys are very conscious. But anger and peace can actually work together. Anger is a motivational force. It gets us moving. It is a wave that gets us up off the couch. We make a new choice, we take a new action, and then we have a new experience. Now, if we experience anger and then we take action, what happens is that the anger dissipates. We get angry, we do something about it, and the anger dissipates. It goes away because we've taken action. If instead we suppress our anger and we sit in that anger without taking action, it festers and it wreaks havoc in our body. It turns into that blame. It turns into resentment. It turns into hatred and judgmentalness. Now, I know somebody in the history books who's the perfect example of somebody practicing peace like a warrior, and that is Martin Luther King Jr. He practiced peace consciously, and he took a lot of positive action because Martin Luther King Jr., he got angry. He got angry about something and he got up off the couch. He put himself out there to do that next right thing before he really thought about it. Like, he said yes to stepping into his role before he really considered what that meant. So he said yes to it, and he got out there and he started making changes. And because he practiced peace like a warrior, he rallied people with him to also be forces for good. So both war and peace, they begin in our hearts. So we can either be a practicer of conflict or a practicer of peace, but we're practicing one or the other of those every day, right? It's a seed. We plant the seed of peace or conflict, and we can only serve one. We cannot plant both the seed of conflict and the seed of peace. Serve conflict, serve peace. That would be like you right now having your light on and off. You can't do it. You either have your light on or off. So I'm going to tell you why it's so great to practice peace like a warrior. And see, with that workshop that I created 3 years ago, I knew how important this information was because it changed me so much. And like, I feel like I'm like a great example of somebody who can really, really struggle, right? Nothing is on the spiritual path has ever been easy for me. I have always struggled with it first. So I figured if I could do it, anybody can do it. So I did one thing with this workshop and I changed the title. That was all I did. Same information. I changed the title from the practice of peace to practicing peace like a warrior. And I filled that workshop to capacity because people want to take action. Everybody wants to be doing something to bring more good into this world. So I'm going to tell you why it's so great to walk this path, practicing peace like a warrior. I'm going to define what warrior means, though, in the context of this talk. And I take my definition of warrior from the Buddhist definition of spiritual warrior and the Toltec definition of spiritual warrior. And Don Miguel Ruiz, the author of the Four Agreements and many, many great teachings, he's a Toltec shaman, and he calls himself a spiritual warrior. So he calls walking that path the path of the spiritual warrior. So a spiritual warrior, they practice self-discipline. They don't need somebody else to always tell them what to do. They just know when to act. They take responsibility for their actions. They know when peace is called for. They know when activity is called for, and they just do it, right? They take responsibility. They participate with life rather than reacting to life. And a spiritual warrior will sacrifice any behavior that moves them into victim consciousness, any behavior. Now, when we are practicing peace like a warrior, we more greatly understand the divine guidance that we are receiving. We receive divine guidance all the time, but if we are feeling disempowered, and the divine guidance just comes to us one step at a time. And so it can feel scary to take action on that because we're not given any guarantees that if we do that, it will lead to the next best thing for us to do. And so when we practice peace like a warrior, we understand that we receive this divine guidance, that it's going to take us out of the comfort zone. We have the courage to act on it and just keep doing it one step at a time. We take actions. We are solution oriented, right? And so all of those forces of the universe that are always rushing to work through us all the time, no matter our mindset, they help us to be a force for good because of the path that we are walking. So you can call yourself a spiritual warrior, a peace warrior, a love warrior. You can call yourself a Jedi, but it's all the same. It's all the same thing. It means that we are walking this path with a heart-based commitment to listen to our heart, for our heart and our mind to work in coherence, to have heart-brain coherence. And we understand that it's not our heart that leads us astray, right? Sometimes people say that, oh, my heart always leads me astray. It's not our heart. It's this little guy that sits here. It's our little me. Our heart is always directly connected to source. So our heart never steers us wrong. It's not being in heart-brain coherence then that we'll forget and we'll listen to this little guy. Because this little guy here, our adversary, the saboteur, little me, little devil, ego, it's always leading us in the wrong direction, but it does it in a way that really makes a lot of sense to us, especially if we are feeling disempowered. Okay, so the practices of a peaceful warrior, the main practice is that we're giving up things that lead us into victim consciousness. Because if we're in victim consciousness, we feel disempowered and we're looking outside at conditions and we're thinking, this is a terrible thing that happened and it's bad. It should never have happened. And It's true. There are some terrible things that have happened that all of us wish never would have happened. But if we're in victim consciousness, we're also going to believe there's nothing we can do about it. Okay, so we just keep struggling because of that condition. So this is the main reason we want to sacrifice behaviors that get us into victim consciousness, because then we are at the mercy of our environment and we will always feel disempowered. So the first behavior that we give up when we practice peace like a warrior is the tendency to be judgmental. All right. Now, judgment, the word judgment, it used to just mean discern, observe. We could have righteous judgment and we were just looking at something and deciding, that's all. But lately, over probably the last 30 years, judgmentalness, it comes with strong opinions about being invested in being right and making somebody else wrong. Somebody who's moved into a space of being judgmental is not open to another way of thinking. And so judgmentalness separates us from each other. Now, if we instead observe the situation, we're just observing and acknowledging, because this is the first step to being able to navigate the conditions of our life. So when we practice peace like a warrior, we decide we're going to let judgmentalness go, because sometimes it can be easy to fall into that trap of judgmentalness, right? We're going to we're going to school somebody, right, to make ourselves feel better. But to practice peace like a warrior, we decide to let that go, just observe. Because then we can do that next thing. We observe the territory so we can accept what's happening. Okay, now accepting doesn't mean tolerating something for the rest of our days. Acceptance means we can now navigate what is going on. But if we stay judgmental, what happens, instead of observing our territory, we'll look at the territory and we'll resist it. Now, when I say territory, I mean conditions of our life, okay? So if we start off being judgmental, we become resistant to life. If we're resistant, we struggle against life and we stay focused on the bad thing that should never have happened. We'll feel powerless and we go into victim consciousness. So to stop resisting what is, we accept what is currently happening. Like right now, I'm looking out my window. I'm accepting, like I'm observing, it's raining. I accept that it's raining. It's what it's doing right now. So I'm not going to want to like walk outside and finger paint. Okay. I have to accept that it is raining outside. When we can accept something, that is when we can start to shift our consciousness, because accepting, again, it does not mean tolerating bad behavior. It means we're observing the territory. We decide what's going on in the territory, just like if you pulled up to a stop sign in your car and you look down the road and you see the road is full of potholes. Now you could get judgmental and resist it. Like, why are there all those potholes? The city's doing a terrible job. What happens if I drive my car through there? How am I supposed to drive my car through that? Now I'm going to be late. Thanks, city, for all the potholes. Okay, that doesn't help our day any. Okay, we observe, oh, there are a lot of potholes there. We accept it. Well, I can't do anything about those potholes unless I want to run out there and fill them all up with a bunch of pavement stuff real quick. We accept what's going on. Okay, lots of potholes. Can I drive around them? Is my car teeny? Can I go on the sidewalk? Or do I need to take another road? Is that it? That's what happens when we observe the territory. We accept what's currently happening in the territory. We can change the condition or we rise above it. But either way, we're moving forward. When we resist life, when we resist those potholes, we can't move forward. All right, so then now if we're stuck being judgmental, then we start resisting life. The next thing that happens is we start playing the blaming and complaining game. All those potholes, they made me late. They wrecked my life. How will I ever get over this now? Okay, when we blame a situation, we are giving it power over our happiness. And you know what? When we're complaining, we're not really picking up the mantle to be a force for good in our life. Complaining is really more kind of passive aggressive, a passive aggressive way to get somebody else to do it. Because if we were judgmental and then we start resisting life, we're struggling against life. And if we're doing all that and blaming and complaining, we are in victim consciousness, which means we don't feel empowered. And we're not going to feel like we actually have access to all of those cosmic forces seeking to work through us at every moment. We're not going to feel that at all. So when we practice peace like a warrior, we observe and accept the territory, then we take responsibility. Okay? It's up to me to decide. Do I change which road I'm going to drive down? Or do I carefully drive around every pothole? Or do I get crazy and get a bunch of pavement stuff and fill in all the potholes? Right? Either way, we're getting where we need to go. And then this leads to the fourth behavior that we either embody or we want to sacrifice. So if we start off all judgmental, we're resisting life, we're struggling against life, we get into the blaming, complaining game, this will actually lead to aggressive or passive aggressive behaviors. And aggression and passive aggression are both manipulation tactics. When we are aggressive, we might use a fear tactic to get somebody to do what we want them to do. Passive aggressiveness, this used to be my milieu, right? I would complain to nobody in particular, but I made sure the person I was complaining about would hear me, okay? So then they would do something about it. Okay, but see, aggression, we are in victim consciousness when we are doing that. When we observe and accept and take responsibility, what happens is we move into a level of assertiveness. Now, assertiveness is a superpower. However, many of us are taught when we were little that assertiveness is wrong, that instead we have to keep our mouths shut, demolish our boundaries, say yes when we mean no, and just not have any boundaries in our life. Okay. So when I've worked with people and I've said, it's okay to be assertive. They're like, no, if I'm assertive, people will call me a bitch. Right. So there's a difference between assertiveness and aggression. Somebody who is aggressive disrespects the opinions of other people, and they are scolding, they're attacking, they're reacting to life. Somebody who is aggressive, they lack inner resourcefulness. Our inner resourcefulness comes from our embodying our Christ consciousness, which when we practice peace like a warrior, that's basically what we're doing. We're embodying our Christ consciousness. That's where our inner resourcefulness is. In victim consciousness, we don't understand that we always have access to that. So this is what leads to aggression. With somebody who is aggressive, there's always a winner, and they have to be the winner, which means they have to make somebody else the loser. Okay. And it's also manipulative. When we are assertiveness, we can only be assertive when we are standing in our power and our truth. We can only be assertive when we are practicing peace like a warrior. We cannot be assertive and in victim consciousness. That would be like having your light on and off at the same time. Now, an assertive person, they state their opinions and they respect the opinions of others. An assertive person knows what they want, and an assertive person will ask for what they want. They will also say no when they mean no, and they will say yes when they mean yes. They keep their promises to others as well as themselves. So an assertive person is the most trustworthy person we will ever know, because we will always have clarity about how they feel about what they're doing for us or with us, or how they feel about us. Okay, we'll always be able to trust them at their word, and we'll never worry, well, maybe they don't like me. I don't know. Okay, so when we are practicing peace like a warrior, we observe and accept what's happening in the territory right now. We take responsibility to navigate. Okay, do we change something? Then we change it. If we can't change it, we rise above it. We're guided from our heart, and we are living authentically. We are living in our empowered self, and we become the most trustworthy person other people know when we are practicing peace like a warrior. And then this is when we get to really let our divinity express through us in like the brightest way possible. We're responders to life. We're interacting with life. We're participating with life. We are saying yes to life because we will know with total certainty that there's that within us, and it knows what to do and how to do it. And it always is compelling us to act on what it knows. So now the only thing that's left is we set our intention to be a source of peace. We set our intention to choose peace. So we're part of the solution. We cease to be a source of conflict when we set our intention to choose peace and to live life as a peaceful warrior. So we set intention, which means putting our attention on how to do that. And we put our attention on something by asking the universe to help us. How can I embody peace right now? Whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on out there and it's kind of scaring me. Okay, so now we cast our burdens. Oh, so I'm just going to let that go. There's nothing I can do about the crazy stuff out there. Right? I'm not going to let it control my happiness. I'm not going to let it scare me. Right? Here we're practicing our denial. It has no power here. That condition has no power here. We affirm. So I am walking that walk. I am practicing peace like a warrior. And every day I'm getting better ideas. And the universe is always inspiring me because the universe is interactive. And I've set an intention. And when I put my attention on stuff, the universe is constantly giving me more information. So this is what we do, right? We're creating from where our attention is. The universe will tell us, will give us a next step to do. That's something that will, every day, like, what's that something I can do? That something is setting an intention and placing our attention on that intention, right? Remember in the beginning was the word? That word means intention and activity. We set an intention to practice peace like a warrior. We are given divine guidance on what action step to take. This is how we are a source of solutions. This is how we are a force for good. This is how we bring more good into the world. And it's how we do good when we don't know what to do because everything seems so big and so overwhelming. And most often we are not doing something about that huge, big, overwhelming thing out there. Most often we're taking a step in our own life which supports other people. And then they do something and that supports other people, right? So what we're doing is we're at the center of creation in our life, sending out a ripple response of peace. We are a source of peace. And that is how we practice peace like a warrior. We release anything that would move us into victim consciousness. And then we do the practice that we know already, observe and accept the territory, and we take responsibility. What can I change? What can't be changed? All right, how do I rise above that? This practice of interacting with life, this exact same practice, this is what race car drivers do. This is what mountain bikers do. They're navigating the territory and they're making quick decisions all the time, right? Because they're moving at such a high speed. They don't have time to stop and lament and be judgmental about anything. They can't resist anything because they are moving at such a high speed. They observe and they look. What can I do? Okay, do I need to move? Where do I need to go now? And that's what happens is we practice peace like a warrior. we start moving at the speed of light in our own life. We are navigating this stuff so fast, right? Always carrying more and more light. Like we're not a jerk ever because we're just moving in the speed of light so quickly. Now, somebody has to choose peace first. Somebody's got to be the first. Somebody's got to be the first to see the divine in all other people. Somebody's got to be the first person to remember, oh yeah, God is in all things. And that means that person driving me nuts. And that means this condition. But that also means me. And that also means the inspiration that comes through me. Right? So we choose to see divinity in all things. We're either a source of conflict or a source of peace, right? Why not just choose peace? We do it all through intention. So we set the intention to practice peace. We ask questions about how to better practice peace. What's the next thing I can do? How can I carry more light right now? We just decide we're going to be so good at navigating the territory that we are traveling and living our lives at the speed of light. And then there's always a next action that we can take that will lead us towards solutions. We just have to choose it. We just choose it. Ernest Holmes said, if we would have peace outwardly, we must first realize peace inwardly. That's what we do. We embody the consciousness of being that person who trusts totally, knows the integrity of the universe, right? We always have faith. We always know how the universe works for us, through us, and as us, because that is how we are creating heaven on earth. So until next time, remember, you are the activity of spirit in a body. You are the heart and the hands of spirit in this world. You are a soul designed to practice peace like a warrior. You're designed to do that. You're not designed to be a source of conflict. That's why it feels miserable. You're designed to practice peace like a warrior. You're designed for growth and goodness in everything you do. You are blessed. And